Hey friends, long time no see. Actually, I saw you last week. I posted a video last week, but I haven't sat down to actually film a YouTube video in a second, so it feels like ages. But I'm equally parts excited and nervous for this video. As you can tell by the title, I'm going to be tier ranking all of the popular booktok books I read. I exist primarily on booktok. That's where I started posting bookish content. I started about a year and a half ago, so that's where most of my audience is. So if you're coming from there, none of these are going to be a surprise to you because I am very outspoken about my opinion on books. Not necessarily in a bad way, but for those of you that start following me on my YouTube, this is going to be a good insight into what my taste in books is like. I just want to preface this video by saying that everyone is allowed a difference of opinion. You may not agree with some of my opinions on books, and that is totally okay. We will still get along very well. A lot of the friends I've made in the book community and I don't see eye to eye on a lot of these books, and I've actually loved talking with them about our difference in opinions. But that being said, let's get started. Okay, so I am going to start by going through the tiers. I am very proud of these. So starting strong, we've got I Wish I Could Tattoo It on My Very Soul. These are books that I will always recommend no matter who you are and what you're into. I will accept no criticism on these books, ever. Then we've got I Made It My Entire Personality and Will Proceed to Do So. These are books that weren't quite 5 stars, but I still obsessed over them. But they were very close to 5 stars, so a solid 4.9. Then we've got I Definitely Hyperfixated on It Longer Than Usual. These are books that maybe were 4 stars, and while I may not obsess over them, they're still one of my favorite books. Then we've got You Were Good, But I Was Waiting for You to Be Great. These are for all of the books I thought were mediocre, that didn't stand out to me. Then we've got No Comment. I don't think I need to explain myself on that one. And then the last tier is I Wish That I Could Wake Up with Amnesia. Yes, that is a 5 Seconds of Summer reference. Yes, I am going to see them in September, so I will be making it my entire personality until then. So I was going to organize this, but then I noticed that they were in alphabetical order, and I sort of loved it. So we're going to keep it that way. So starting strong, we've got Actor Age Eve Brown. This is part of an interconnected series of standalones called the Brown Sisters. So I thoroughly enjoyed this series. I've been trying to diversify my bookshelf, and it was definitely a great introduction to doing that. I did read it probably over a year ago, so I don't remember too much about it. I don't think I hyperfixated on it, but it definitely wasn't a mediocre book. I think I'm still gonna put it in the You Were Good, But I Was Waiting for You to Be Great tier. There was definitely a lot of representation in all 3 of those books, not just when it comes to being part of a minority group. Then we've got Addicted to You. I don't even think I need to explain myself on this one. I think no matter where you follow me, whether it's booktok, bookstagram, or booktube, you are well aware by now that I am an addicted series girly. It is my favorite series of all time. All hits, no misses. 5 stars. So Addicted to You represents all of the books in the series. I'm going to put it, I Wish I Could Tattoo It on My Very Soul. I think every day about what life would be like if I were part of the core 6. Anything Krista and Becca Ritchie write, I absolutely eat up. They could publish their grocery list and I would still put it in the I Wish I Could Tattoo It on My Very Soul tier. Let's get that straight. Okay, when Dishonestly Yours comes out, prepare to be sick of me. Prepare to be absolutely exhausted with me. I will become absolutely unbearable. I am such a found family girly that there was no way I wasn't going to love this book or the series. I am definitely a Raisy girly, so Reich and Daisy. She is my comfort character to this day. Out of all the books I've ever read in my entire life, I've been an avid reader since I was a child. Daisy is my favorite female protagonist of all time. I've never resonated with a character as much as I've resonated with her. So they're currently re-releasing all of these books through Berkeley Romance. I definitely recommend reading them. There is just not enough time for me to put into words just how much I love this series. It got me through the most difficult year of my life, and it will always do that for me. I am also a friends to lovers girly, so we got that twice in the series between Lily and Lo and then Reich and Daisy. I'm also very fond of the academic rivals to lovers trope, so that would be Rose and Connor. I actually got my sister into reading these books and she's absolutely loving it, so I've made it my mission to convert everyone into addicted stans. I will never be able to put it into words. I will never be able to explain exactly what this series means to me. It genuinely saved my life. So moving on, then we've got All Your Perfects by Colleen Hoover. Now there is a lot of talk surrounding Colleen Hoover as an author and as a person. I personally made the choice not to read any more of her books. I don't believe that you can separate the art from the artist when the art is financially supporting the artist. A person's morals definitely translates to the page whether or not they intended to. That being said, when I did read All Your Perfects, I gave it 5 stars. Between now and then, my taste definitely changed dramatically, so I'm a little conflicted. I want to put it in the I made it my entire personality and will proceed to do so tier, but I think I'm gonna put it in the one below. I was down so bad for Graham and I don't understand why. I just don't get it. What was I going through? It was just a very emotionally exhausting book. I am always there for the second chance romance trope, but looking back on it now, that is a situation that I just cannot empathize with. He did not deserve a second chance. Yeah, I ate it up anyway. So I'm definitely questioning my past judgment. Then we've got Archer's Voice. I will say I very thoroughly enjoyed this book. I didn't quite make it my entire personality, but I did hyperfixate on it a little. So the author actually just put out a book called Travis. Well, not just. It's been out for a couple years now, but it was just traditionally published through Bloom Books. And essentially it is supposed to be a character redemption story for Archer's cousin, I believe, Travis. I personally will not be reading it, but the ending of Archer's Voice did me in. I was so devastated. I was thinking so many thoughts. It did not end the way I expected it to. A lot of readers will probably agree that once you get to that last couple of chapters, the author is writing in a way that makes you think this tragedy went down. I'm trying to explain this without spoiling it, but it didn't. So thank God for that. I would probably still read more of Mia Sheridan's work. I have a couple of her other books. I just didn't quite make it a priority to read any of the other ones. Okay, then we've got Bad Girl Reputation by Elle Kennedy. I read this book as an ARC and I've seen what I needed to see. It is the second book in the Avalon Bay series, I believe. It is an interconnected series of standalones. The first book was very popular on BookTok. It was Good Girl Complex. I personally didn't read it. I never read any of this author's work before, but I saw it on NetGalley and I was like, why not? I'm not quite sure what butterfly effect led me to that decision, but I wish it never did. I also wish I was being dramatic. I personally don't think I am going to like any of this author's writing. It just came across as very misogynistic. There was a lot of toxic masculinity going on. I did purchase the Off-Campus and Briar U series. They're also very popular on BookTok. I never read them because I will always be an Addicted and Calloway Sisters series girl until my last days. Even into the afterlife, it will be the series I preach. So the idea of going into another series with a lot of the same tropes just didn't sit very well with me. I was already emotionally connected to these 6 characters and I can't imagine being that invested in anyone else. So I don't want to compare the series unintentionally. After reading Bad Girl Reputation, I think I'm just gonna sell those 2 series. It's been a little over a year since I've owned them and I've still yet to read them. Check my Pango books. I may be listing them in the next couple of weeks. But I'm gonna put this in the no comment tier, even though I had a lot to say about it. Okay, next we've got Beach Read by Miss Emily Henry. I actually did a reread of this a couple of weeks ago. I don't remember why I did it. Oh yes, so I moderate a book club over on Fable. It's called Lessons in Love and you should totally join because we are currently reading Happy Place by Miss Emily Henry and it is my favorite book of all time. But that is a story for later because it is also on the tier list. But in preparation for that, one of the books we read was Beach Read. And I didn't write a review when I first read it. So it was one of the first new adult books I ever read. So I've read a lot since then and I didn't quite remember anything that went down. After doing a reread, it is definitely a comfort read. I will say, I am not as obsessed with it as a lot of people on BookTok are, but it is still one of my holy grail book recommendations. So I'm gonna put it on, I made it my entire personality and will proceed to do so. After reading it the second time, I still rated it 4.5 between 4.75 stars. Don't ask me what any of that means. I just rate based on vibes, so later I may move it up a tier, but I need to sit on it. Gus Everett is one of my favorite book boyfriends though, but the ending of that book was perfection. As an angst lover, it served without doing a dramatic third act breakup, but Emily Henry never misses, so it shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone. Okay, next we've got Before I Let Go by Kennedy Ryan. I actually read this as an ARC, so it's the only book of hers that I've ever read, but I rated it 5 stars without even thinking twice about it. Oh my god, I don't think I will ever be able to put into words just how much I love this book. It is a second chance romance with so much angst. There are a lot of difficult emotions going on in that book, so definitely check the trigger warnings before going into it. But it is also one of my holy grail book recommendations. At the time, it was one of the only books I'd ever read where the adults actually acted like adults. They communicated. I'm definitely very excited to read more of her books. It's also being turned into a movie, and it is one of the only books that I think will translate excellently to the screen. There's been a lot of book to movie adaptations announced lately, but this is one that I can tell is going to be done perfectly. When I was reading it, I even noticed there were a lot of qualities that would make it exceptional as some sort of film adaptation. So I'm gonna put this in, I wish I could tattoo it on my very soul. Okay, then we've got Book Lovers, again by Emily Henry. I will say, I am well overdue for a reread because I don't remember anything about it. Well, that's an over-exaggeration. So I'd already read Happy Place as an ARC, and I went into Barnes & Noble to buy it, and the bookseller comes over and is like, "Are you finding everything okay?" I was losing it. I could not stop smiling. So we got into a conversation about Emily Henry books. I told her she needed to read this. She was telling me how Book Lovers was her favorite. Personally, in my Emily Henry ranking, it's probably, I don't want to say my least favorite, but if I needed to rank them, it would probably be on the bottom. I just couldn't resonate with the characters as well, but I do love books about books, and Nora is in the publishing industry as an editor, so I absolutely love that because I want to be an editor. I'm not sure whether to put it in I made it my entire personality and will proceed to do so, or I definitely hyperfixated on it for longer than usual. I think I'm gonna put it in I definitely hyperfixated on it for longer than usual. But I did put it in front of Archer's Voice. I'm actually going to put it in front of All of Your Perfects as well. Okay, then we've got Carrie Soto's Back by Taylor Jenkins Reid. She is one of my favorite authors ever. The holy trinity for me will always be Kristen Rebecca-Ritchie, Emily Henry, and Taylor Jenkins Reid. I also read this one as an ARC. I was very nervous going into it because for those of you that read Malibu Rising, Carrie Soto is the woman that had an affair with Nina's husband. So I was a little nervous about her character arc. I thought that was going to be a focus in the story and I wasn't living for it. But it actually ended up being one of my favorite books of 2022. Once again, I was nervous because Carrie Soto is also a tennis player and I am not a sports girly. Even sports romances, sometimes I'm a little wary just because it tends to be monotonous. But the way it was written in this story is just very digestible. So I'm gonna put this in I Made It My Entire Personality and will proceed to do so. Okay, then we've got Collided by Lauren Asher. Now, this is a part of the Dirty Air series. There are 4 interconnected standalones that revolve around F1 racers. I actually thought I was gonna love this series because of that, but I only liked one book in the series and Collided was definitely not it. I believe this one, Goodreads isn't working. Hello? So I was gonna tell you who this book was about, but Goodreads isn't loading. Okay, so it's about Sophie and Liam. I just didn't like this at all. I've read 7 of Lauren Asher's books. I think they may be the only books she's written. I'm not too sure. But out of those 7 books, I've only liked 2 of them. So I just don't think her writing is for me. It's just giving very much toxic masculinity. The dirty talk is just not it. I was just getting so much embarrassment. Not even secondhand, first-hand embarrassment from some of those scenes. I gave this book 2 stars. I was not very generous with any of the books in the series. So I thought I was gonna love this book because it is sort of a forbidden romance. Sophie is the daughter of Liam's boss. I wanna see if I wrote a review. I didn't even give it the time of day. I just rated it 2 stars. So I'm gonna let that speak for itself and put this in, I'm not sure if I wanna put this in no comment or I wish that I could wake up with amnesia. Wow. Okay, I'm gonna put this in no comments because I already am well aware of some of the books that are going to go into the I wish that I could wake up with amnesia tier, and Collided isn't quite that atrocious. So we're gonna move on. Okay, then we've got Confess by Colleen Hoover. I was just infuriated while reading this book. The characters just annoyed me. All of the characters were putting the main character in a terrible position to be in, and I was upset for her. But also, there was some cop-mance going on in this. So one of the main characters was a cop, and I just don't like those. I am not going to expand on that. I'm just going to leave that statement where it is. I am also going to put this in the no comment tier. Then we've got Credence by Penelope Douglas. I was very clear in my Goodreads review where I stand with this book, and I'm not even going to give it the time of day to talk about. Sexual assault is not taboo. I can look past the step-cousin romance. Believe it or not, I would be willing to put that aside. What I can't ignore is the blatant sexual assault in this book. One of her step-cousins tries pursuing her before he even knows who she is. She's just standing in his garage, and he comes onto her without her consent. The dialogue clearly states that she does not want it. She even outwardly says she doesn't want it. Petition for Goodreads to put in a 0-star rating, because I would have been the first person to give this book 0 stars. As if I wasn't already going to give this book 0 stars, the epilogue just sealed the deal. That being said, I will not be reading any more of this author's books. There's a lot of controversy around their writing. I've seen what I needed to see, especially with the Devil's Night series. I personally will never be a Penelope Douglas girly. You do you. It's just not for me. So I am most definitely putting this in the I wish that I could wake up with amnesia tier. If Credence were the last book on Earth, I still wouldn't read it. But moving on to better books, we've got Daisy Jones and the Six. I gave this book 5 stars. I didn't think I was going to enjoy it because of the setup of the novel. It is written in an interview style, but I was on the edge of my seat the entire time. The ending absolutely destroyed me. It was also just turned into an Amazon series, and I've only watched 4 episodes, I believe. But I'm absolutely loving it. The album absolutely slays. I am putting this on I wish I could tattoo it on my very soul. I am a Camilla Dunn stan until my last dying breath. She deserved so much better. Okay, the next book is Every Summer After, and I don't want to go too in depth with this book, but I was actually reading this the exact moment I found out my brother passed away. So I am going to put it in the I wish I could tattoo it on my very soul tier, just because of the impact it had on me emotionally. The characters in this book are also grieving. I definitely rated this book 5 stars based on vibes, but it obviously means a lot to me, so I'm just gonna leave it at that. Next, we've got Final Offer. Now, this is the 3rd book in the Dreamland Billionaire series. It is all about the youngest Kane brother, Callahan. I was rooting for this book. I wanted to love this book so bad, and yet I absolutely hated it. I just don't understand how this book was 600 pages, and the only plot point revolved around him being an alcoholic and her saying she was never going to forgive him but doing it anyway. I want to be generous and put this in no comment, but I think it deserves to be put in the I wish that I could wake up with amnesia tier. It just does not sit well with me. I just can't. I'm speechless. Absolutely speechless. I'm not sure where to put it. Okay, I'm gonna put it in no comment for now. Then we've got From Luke with Love by Mariana Zapata. It is the only book of hers I've ever read. I will say I was not very responsible and bought a couple of her books without even reading one. I deeply regret it. I don't think I will be reading any more of those books. So those are also probably going on my Pango books in a couple of weeks. It was slow burn to the next level. It didn't even give me enough romance to tide me over. So I was just very bored. I didn't like the way her family spoke to her. I didn't like the way the love interest spoke to her. I didn't like the way she interacted with people. I did love the plot though. It was set up for success. It wasn't my cup of tea, but I could see why people love it. I just didn't agree with some stylistic writing choices the author made, so I'm just gonna put this in no comment. I wanted to love it. I truly did. Maybe I'll give it a reread. Okay, then we've got Games We Play. I am going to put this in I wish that I could wake up with amnesia. There is a lot to be said about this author, but essentially she ended up writing this story based on one of the narrators, to my understanding. It just didn't sit well with me, so I only read it because it was a novella. I regret making that choice. The plot was just unsettling. I just didn't enjoy it. Goodreads is not loading. It is just not working, and I want to give you more insight on this book, but I fear I may not be able to. Essentially, it's about this interviewer that goes to this popular streamer's house. He wears a mask, nobody knows who he is, they end up sleeping together. It should be very to the point. I just can't put into words why I don't like it. I will say I've posted written reviews for almost all of these, I believe, on my Goodreads. So if you want to see my more in-depth thoughts, check it out. I've linked it down below. Okay, next we've got Get a Life, Chloe Brown. I also enjoyed this. As I mentioned before, it is part of the Brown Sisters series. It's actually the first book in the series. The cover is giving Weasley brother. I love the Weasleys, so that is such a compliment. I am also going to put this in You Were Good But I Was Waiting for You to Be Great because I enjoyed it when I started reading it, but since then I've read a lot better romances. That being said, I would still read this author if they decided to release more books. It was a very cute rom-com though. I enjoyed it, but out of all the books I've read, it doesn't quite stand out to me the way some of the other ones have. Then we've got Happy Place by Miss Emily Henry. I am going to put this in the I wish I could tattoo it on my very soul tier. It is my beach read. So the way the book community feels about Augustus Everett is the way I feel about Win Connor. I should be sweeping my house for cameras after she wrote this book because Harriet is me, I am Harriet, we are one. It is for the second chance romance, friends to lovers, angst-loving girlies like myself. It is my favorite book of hers. It is also my favorite standalone to ever be written. That is saying a lot because I've read a lot of standalones. I am very excited to see what she does next, but I also think this is probably going to still be my favorite book of hers. It just resonated that much with me. There was so much more depth to Win than I feel like we experienced with some of her other male protagonists. I won't say they weren't developed that well because they definitely were. The banter in this book is absolutely unmatched. There's just no way that can be topped. Happy Place is Emily Henry's Midnights. It needs to top every bestseller list to ever exist because it deserves to be everyone's favorite book. I gave it 5 stars, not even a quarter of the way through the book. I wanted to reread it. I will be rereading it because, as I mentioned, it is our May book of the month in my book club Lessons in Love on Fable. There's a lot of great discussion going on about this book. Then we've got Heartbones by Colleen Hoover. There's a lot of Colleen Hoover on this list just because she's obviously a very popular author on BookTok. So when I joined that community, I was taking any and all recommendations. I will say, out of all of her books that I've read, it is one of my favorites. Maybe I should have included a tier between I definitely hyper-fixated on it for longer than usual and You Were Good But I Was Waiting for You to Be Great. It was a good book, a great book even, but I didn't hyper-fixate on it. I read it, enjoyed it, and then moved on. But if the Brown Sisters are in that tier, so is Heartbones. Okay, then we've got Hook, Line, and Sinker. It is the first book in the Bellinger Sister duology. I personally enjoyed It Happened One Summer more. Hook, Line, and Sinker was supposed to be a French lovers romance. It didn't stand out to me as much as the other did. I also read this very long ago, but I'm gonna put it in You Were Good But I Was Waiting for You to Be Great. Then we've got Icebreaker by Hannah Grace. I wanted to love this book so much. I think I only rated it 3 stars, but I think it deserved a little more than that. Truthfully, it was just a little long for everything going on, or lack thereof. I am also gonna put that in You Were Good But I Was Waiting for You to Be Great. In comparison with From Lukov with Love, another ice skating romance, I definitely preferred it, so I'm not going to put it in the same tier as No Comment. Then we've got It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. I am going to put this in No Comment. Between the Ellen letters and the Goth flower store, I've seen what I needed to see. I own It Starts With Us. I probably won't even read it. I'm gonna play devil's advocate. Atlas is just mid. He had that one line and everyone went feral. I just don't understand. That being said, there are a lot of difficult topics discussed in this book, so I understand if it resonated with people. I don't want to discredit anyone's experience with this book. Okay, then we've got It Happened One Summer. As I mentioned before, it is the first book in the Bellinger Sisters duology. I am going to put this in... I definitely hyperfixated on it for longer than usual. Looking back on it now, I would probably only give it 3 stars, but I ate it up when I read it. It was my very first book by Tessa Bailey, like so many others. I love the grumpy sunshine trope. It is just a feel-good romance. There were a couple of embarrassing moments when she walked into the pub during that one party. That wasn't a party. Those of you that have read it understand what I'm trying to say. But Brendan can do my maintenance any day. As a high maintenance girly, I was living for it. Okay, then we've got King of Wrath by Anna Huang. I am just so impressed by her writing in the sense that it just keeps getting better. I won't say it's perfect by any means. I won't say it's my style by any means, but I am just so proud of her. But I somewhat enjoyed the Twisted series. I'm a little conflicted on my feelings toward it. I definitely love Reese Larson. He is my absolute favorite. One of my top book boyfriends. I would marry that man. Overall, I'm just feeling very wishy-washy about that series, but I am definitely excited to see what she does with this series. It's called the Kings of Sin series. There are supposed to be 7 books to my understanding. I bought King of Pride. I've yet to read it, but Kai is probably gonna be a book husband. He wears glasses. That is so hot. Anyway, I am going to put this in, I definitely hyperfixated on it for longer than usual. I didn't quite make it my entire personality. Okay, then we've got Love and Other Words by Christina Lauren. Now, this was the first book I read after my brother passed away, so it is once again another book I've got emotional ties to. So I'm gonna put this in I Wish I Could Tattoo It on My Very Soul. Overall, I also love friends to lovers romances, and it definitely just did it for me, especially when they're lakeside or beach romances. In this instance, it was a vacation house on the lake. Then we've got Love on the Brain. I'm gonna put this in no comment. It was also one of our book club books. We read it in February. I wanted to love it because one of the characters' names was Kaylee. Obviously, my name is also Kaylee. She was very much like me in the sense that she was outgoing and bubbly. She's a woman in STEM. I am not. But it was just whacked out. The plot was wild toward the end. I was gonna give it a generous 3 stars, but then I got to the end of the book. I got to the climax and tapped out. I was like, there's no way this made it through all stages of publication. No one raised a red flag at this. We got this dramatic and traumatic event that, let me mind you, didn't seem to affect either character very much, even though it definitely should. There should be a lot of trauma left over from this climax, but there wasn't. They just brushed past it with not a care in the world. So I was gonna give it 3 stars, but then that went down. Actually, I think I'm gonna put this in I Wish That I Could Wake Up With Amnesia. I am not gonna be generous with that. I think we need to go back to the drawing board. It's a shame because I truly did enjoy The Love Hypothesis. Okay, then we've got Malibu Rising. Now, this is part of the Women in Fame series. That also includes Carrie Soto's Back, Daisy Jones and the Six, and then The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo that we haven't gotten to yet. They're a series of 4 interconnected standalones. Obviously, all of these women are famous. I will say I definitely hyperfixated on Malibu Rising. I want to say I also made it my entire personality, but not the same way with maybe some of the other books. I'm unsure on that one. Don't quote me on this one. It's that in between the 2 tiers that I never created that maybe I should have, but there's no going back now. I very much enjoyed the way this story was set up. It was told in alternating timelines between the past and the present, but also it was set up so every chapter in the present moment took place during a different hour of this party. So it would tell you 11 p.m. and then you would get everything that went down between everyone at that party. So you got a lot of different perspectives. I actually very much enjoyed this story. I kind of want to move it up to I made it my entire personality. I'm not sure. I'll think on it. But while we're waiting, we've got Meet Me at the Lake by Carly Fortune. I also read this as an ARC. I wanted to love it because obviously, as I mentioned before, I've got emotional ties to Every Summer After. It is a book that will always be a part of my life, whether I choose for it to be or not. It was one of those 5-star cover, 1-star books, except it wasn't exactly a 1-star. I think I did give it 3 stars. I just can't understand being that down bad for a man, let alone one you've only known for 24 hours. It was not within the realm of believability at all. I do acknowledge that this was a story the author needed to write for herself, if not for her audience. So I definitely respect that. In her acknowledgements, it clearly means a lot to her, so I don't want to discredit that. I am just gonna put it in no comment. Okay, then we've got Mile High by Liz Tomford. I bought this series on a whim. I started reading it the week I went to go see Taylor Swift. It took me a long time to get through this book because of that. I was just so distracted with everything going on in my life. It was a very chaotic but amazing month. I'm gonna put this in I made it my entire personality and will proceed to do so because I've messaged Liz so many times. She's probably sick of me at this point. I also posted a reading vlog. I absolutely love her writing. It is a longer book, but because of that, the pacing is absolutely perfect. If you are not an angst lover, or rather I should say angst in a miscommunication way, the Windy City series is definitely for you. There's still a couple of angsty moments, but the protagonists are very open with each other. The miscommunication trope doesn't exist. So I very much love it. I will say in Mile High there was a third act breakup. I usually don't care either way whether there is one or not. I just didn't think it aligned with their character arc very well, but that truly is the only critique I have on this book. I'm just very excited to read more of her books. I'm going to tell you, anyone can write lovable main characters. It is the authors that write lovable supporting characters that will always have my heart. Madison and Logan are a couple in this book, and their family is so wholesome. I absolutely love the dynamic. I will say the entire time I was reading this book, I was like, I need a book on Madison and Logan. There's no way there isn't a book. It reads like we should already be well aware of their backstory, the dynamic going on. I was just counting my losses at that point because I didn't look too much into the author's previous writing, but my surface level search didn't come up with anything. So I posted my Goodreads review and somebody commented and told me there are two. Not just one, but two. So to whoever made that comment on my Goodreads post, if you are watching this, I am manifesting so much for you. I truly hope your pillow is always cold. I hope you always get 8 hours of sleep. I hope you always get the first parking spot. I hope you always get a green light. You just deserve so much. You are doing the work of the people, for the people, by the people. Then we've got November 9 by Colleen Hoover. I enjoyed this book when I read it. I am an angst girly, clearly. We've established that. But looking back on it, it is so twisted. That plot was so toxic. I'm gonna be completely transparent. That 4th November, while it broke me, I actually loved the book because of it. Maybe I should seek mental evaluation. I'm just gonna put this under no comment. Okay, then we've got One True Loves. I don't think I need to explain myself. I'm gonna put this in I wish I could tattoo it on my very soul. I rated this book 5 stars once again without thinking about it. I wish I could read this book for the first time again. I just absolutely loved it. It broke my heart and put it back together again. It is definitely my favorite Taylor Jenkins Reid book. Once again, it's also told in alternating timelines. I've yet to see the movie. Yes, they did come out with the movie and Philippa Sue is in it. I absolutely love her. The theater kid in me is crying tears of joy. I want to see it. I am just not emotionally prepared to see it because the book broke me, so I can't imagine what the movie is going to do to me. Please go read it. I am begging you. All of these books in the top tier, please put them on your TBR. You won't regret it. I will personally buy you a book if you do. Okay, then we've got People We Meet on Vacation, also by Emily Henry. Now, there are two types of people in this world. People that love this book and people that hate this book. I am with the people that love this book. I am going to put it in I made it my entire personality and will proceed to do so. I love Friends to Lovers. It's just so nostalgic. Yes, I understand where everyone is saying the ending was very anticlimactic. I totally get that, but I personally was reading this book for vibes, okay? All of Emily Henry's books are perfect vacation reads. They are for when you want a rom-com with just enough conflict to tide you over. If you are an Emily Henry girly like myself, we are just gonna be besties. I can already tell. I love this book more than words can ever explain. It just sits right with me. I just can't imagine not loving it. Their friendship was just so pure. Even before either one of them got feelings for the other, they would make great friends or lovers. But they're better as both. Okay, then we've got Redeemed. It is the last book in the Dirty Air series. When I mentioned I only liked one book in this series, I was talking about Redeemed. So I'm going to put this in I made it my entire personality. I truly enjoyed this book. Both of the characters were very lovable. The prologue of this book absolutely broke me. I will say, Lauren Asher absolutely slayed this book. Santiago is most definitely a book husband. I will marry that man, no questions asked. I love when authors write their characters in a way that doesn't make them immune. There was a tragic accident that Santiago went through that changed him emotionally and physically. The author did everything right in this book. I wish all of her books were written this way, but personally I just don't vibe with her writing style, but this was the gem for me. Okay, then we've got Reminders of Him by Colleen Hoover. I was so traumatized reading this book because it was one of my most anticipated releases of 2022, and I sat down to read it, got maybe 80 pages in, and 30 pages of the book were missing. I ended up ordering it online at Barnes & Noble for pickup. I drive the 30 minutes it takes to get to Barnes & Noble, and that's when they decide to tell me they don't actually have the book in stock. I just bawled my eyes out. I was just devastated. I've got conflicting emotions on this book, but I do remember hyper-fixating on it. So I'm just gonna put it in that tier and leave it there. It broke my heart. I cried so much reading that book. I definitely don't think you can reread Colleen's books because they are so devastating. Okay, then we've got Secretly Yours by Tess Bailey. It is the first book in the A Vine Mess duology. I just read Unfortunately Yours as an arc. It is the second book in the duology. I buddy read it with one of my mutuals from Bookstagram. We are absolutely eating it up. But I gave this book 5 stars. Truthfully, I could have just been on a reader high, but I'm gonna trust my instinct and I'm gonna put it in I made it my entire personality. So I'm just gonna take my own word for it. Although I will say I might move it down to I definitely hyperfixated on it for longer than usual. I've said that for so many books, but I've still yet to move anything, so. Okay, then we've got Take a Hint, Dani Brown. I don't remember too much of this, so I'm gonna put it in You Were Good But I Was Waiting for You to Be Great tier, just because her other sisters are there, and out of all 3 of those books, I enjoyed Actor H. E. Brown the most. So if she's there, then Dani also needs to be there. Okay, back to Miss Lauren Asher, then we've got Terms and Conditions. As I mentioned before, this is the second book that I enjoyed of Lauren's. I am going to put this in I Made It My Entire Personality. I also rated this 5 stars. Once again, not sure if I was on a reader high. Iris is one of my absolute favorite female protagonists ever. I love the way she stood her ground. She's such a girl boss. I'm also living for the diversity. Declan's got it going on. Also, that name is so hot. He's also rich, so I think I'm meant to love him. If I were to reread this book, I'm not sure if I would also still give it 5 stars. But if I don't believe in myself, who will? Okay, so then we've got The Bride Test by Helen Huang. I actually bought the special Illumicrate edition of these. I thoroughly enjoyed this series. It wasn't my favorite by any means, but I truly enjoyed the author's writing style. I think I'm still gonna put this in You Were Good But I Was Waiting for You to Be Great tier. Maybe I definitely hyperfixated on it for longer than usual. What do we think? I thought about it a lot after reading it. Out of all 3 books in the series, The Bride Test was definitely my favorite. Actually, I'm gonna move this up to I definitely hyperfixated on it. Then we've got The Fine Print. I'm gonna put this in, should I put this in no comment or I wish that I could wake up with amnesia? I was actually talking to one of my friends about this book. It was just very mediocre. I personally did not like the Dreamland plot. It was a copy and paste of Disneyland. She didn't even try to hide it. She even promotes it that way. Personally, that isn't a choice I would make. It isn't very original. Some people can probably look past it, but I tend to be overly analytical when it comes to books because I am trying to become an editor. Honestly, I think I'm gonna put this in I Wish That I Could Wake Up with Amnesia. I may also move Batgirl Reputation down. Maybe I did wake up with amnesia because I don't remember that book very much. Oh my god, then we've got The Hating Game. I hated this book. The Hating Game is absolutely right. It was a game and I hated it. I am putting this in no comment. Okay, if The Fine Print is in the tier below it, I feel like The Hating Game should also be in that tier. All of this is very difficult. I'm gonna move it down. Then we've got The Heart Principle. I wanted this to be my favorite. It was definitely a close second to The Bride Test. I just didn't enjoy the ending. It seemed to drag. That being said, the female protagonist was definitely one that resonated with me, so I'm gonna put this in I definitely well, okay, actually, you were good, but I was waiting for you to be great. I loved the mailman character. Driving a motorcycle is hot. Okay, then we've got the kiss quotient. I'm gonna put this in you were good, but I was waiting for you to be great, just because my dad's name is Michael, so I barely got through the book. If the name were different, it would probably be, and I definitely hyper-fixated on it. I just couldn't read it. I'm sure you all understand because I am well aware I'm not the only person that's experienced this before. The female protagonist is autistic, and I absolutely love that representation. If you've got any recs for that, please let me know. I loved both of them as characters, as a couple, everything, but once again, I just couldn't get past that one aspect. Okay, then we've got the love hypothesis. I am once again gonna be completely transparent about this. I gave this book 5 stars when I read it. Since then, I've definitely taken off a star. I hyper-fixated on it though. It was one of the first new adult books I ever read, so the smut just hit different. The little that there was. That being said, it was very much a no-think read. I would just read it if I needed a palate cleanser. Okay, then we've got The Right Move by Liz Tomford. I am without a doubt putting this in I Wish I Could Tattoo It on My Very Soul. Ryan Shea is the book boyfriend. Indy Ivers is up there with Daisy Calloway for me. She's one of my favorite female protagonists ever. I absolutely adore both of them. They go so well together as individuals, as a couple, as friends, everything. The Right Move did it for me. I am down so bad for that man. I would do absolutely anything. I am on my hands and knees. He built her a bookcase. He bought her a house. He makes her coffee in the morning and puts it in the fridge before he goes to practice. That way the ice doesn't water it down. He does so much. He also learned ASL because her father is deaf. Before they were even seriously dating, he also paid for her fertility treatments. She is just a ray of sunshine, and those characters are my absolute favorite. Liz probably thinks I'm absolutely unbearable because I will not stop DMing her about Ryan. But I am an advocate for never keeping nice thoughts to yourself. I think especially in the world of publishing, as someone that's trying to write a book, you very much get imposter syndrome. You're not sure if people will like your writing. So especially with indie authors, I always want to make sure they feel loved and seen. She truly does deserve the world. I can't wait for a traditional publisher to pick this up. The next book is about Kai. He is a baseball player. Not only that, he is a single dad. It is gonna be a nanny single dad romance, and I am living for it. He also wears glasses. I am down so bad for a man that wears glasses. I just can't. I absolutely love it. I think that book is also going to go in this top tier when it comes out. Okay, then we've got The Roughest Draft. I was in somewhat of a reading slump when I read this, so I may be a little biased. I personally thought this was mediocre. I didn't enjoy it very much. It just didn't stick for me. So I'm gonna put it in maybe no comment. I think no comment. It wasn't exactly good in my opinion. That being said, the authors did release a book this year, Do I Know You? I enjoyed that book. I gave that book 4 stars. I read it as an ARC. Berkeley Romance sent me a copy and I was a little wary to read it, but it is also a second chance romance. That being said, the authors are releasing a Taylor Swift Eras Tour inspired book next year. I am so excited to read that. I am obviously a Swiftie. I am obviously a reader. My two worlds colliding. I cannot wait. I am manifesting it is going to be a 5-star read. I'm manifesting it's better than their previous writing. Not that I don't enjoy it. I think The Roughest Draft especially read very much as though it was written by 2 different people because it is written by a married couple. Their voices blended together a lot better in Do I Know You? I will say that. So they give off the vibe of Anna Huang in the sense that their writing seems to be getting better with each book. Okay, then we've got The Unhoneymooners by Christina Lauren. I'm gonna put this in no comment. I very much think their writing is hit or miss. I absolutely loved Love in Other Words. I didn't enjoy The Unhoneymooners. Seeing all of the reviews for their other books, I am sensing I'm either gonna love it or hate it. That being said, one book that isn't my cup of tea is not enough to make me stop reading their writing. Okay, then we've got The Worst Best Man. Truthfully, I don't remember this book. Anything. I truly don't even remember the characters' names or the plot. So I'm gonna put this in no comment maybe. I am just thinking, if I can't even remember it, it probably wasn't good. I probably trauma blocked it out. Okay, then we've got Throttled. I'm a little conflicted because after seeing the character development from that couple in the other books, I love them. But in their books, I was definitely questioning it a little. But if Collided is in the no comment tier, I think I'm gonna put Throttled in the you were good but I was waiting for you to be great tier. It was also a forbidden romance. It was a brother's enemy romance. I was absolutely living for that. I definitely got a little embarrassed at some parts because she is a YouTuber. Just listen, I am well aware that I am also a YouTuber, but seeing it written out is just, it just doesn't sit well with me. I think there are excellent ways to go about writing that. Don't ask me what they are because I don't even know. All I can tell you is I just didn't enjoy the way it was written in this story. Okay, then we've got The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. I'm gonna put this in I Wish I Could Tattoo It on My Very Soul tier. It was the first book I ever remember giving 5 stars to. It was also the first book I remember crying over. It just made me very emotional toward the end. I'm a little nervous because it is supposed to be turning into a movie on Netflix. Netflix just doesn't have a good track record for creating very good book to movie adaptations. But being as Taylor Jenkins Reid is going to be very involved, it seems, I've got a little hope. Daisy Jones and the Six, even the changes they chose to make made sense. But I will say Harry deserves so much better. I literally cannot believe that went down. I will never forgive Taylor Jenkins Reid for that plot. Okay, then we've got the Summer I Turned Pretty series. I ate it up. I read it after it was adapted as another Amazon Prime series. Season 2 is also coming out this summer, I believe. I've only watched the first 15 minutes of the first episode, but I am currently attempting to watch it. I've just got absolutely no time, but I'm gonna put this in I Mean My Entire Personality. As far as young adult books go, it is definitely on the better end of what I've seen. A lot of people said Belly is just a pick-me girl. I didn't think that. Truthfully, I just thought she was acting the way a lot of teenage girls acted. She's just navigating the world. I think people are taking all of it a lot more out of context. They're just holding her to higher standards than they need to. It's okay. I personally can't imagine dating 2 brothers. Obviously not at the same time, but I'm saying dating one brother and then going to the other, that's awkward for everyone involved. But she kind of slayed with that. The last book sort of irritated me. Belly did get on my nerves in that book, but overall, I think just because it's got that nostalgic summer vibe, I want to be rich enough to have a beach house. I want my best friend and I to raise our families together and bring them to this vacation home. That being said, Jenny Han is horrid for that ending in the first book. We all saw it coming. We didn't want to. I was sobbing. She had no right. She had absolutely no right. Okay, then we've got the Spanish Love Deception. I'm just gonna put this in no comment. I did not enjoy this book. The smut was hot, but it took way too long to get there. I definitely don't think this is a couple that would stay together very long after the epilogue. I said what I needed to say. Okay, so since this is in alphabetical order, the series is out of order, so I'm just gonna do it in order. So we're gonna start with Twisted Love. I will never forgive her for making Alex sing. If a man serenaded me, I would blacklist him. I would never date him ever again. So I'm gonna put this in no comment. He made some very questionable choices. Then the next book was Twisted Games. I'm gonna put this in I Made It My Entire Personality. I enjoyed this book the most out of all of them. Reese was the only male character in the series that didn't need to grovel. He was unproblematic. There was just enough angst to tide me over. As I mentioned before, the political aspect was a little boring. Obviously, since it's a monarchy, it is just very outdated. But, oh, I absolutely love them. They are one of my favorite book couples ever. I would marry either one of them, truthfully. Okay, then we've got Twisted Hate. I am a Josh Chen hater. Say what you need to say, believe what you need to believe, but I would never let a man that said, I lied while we were sleeping together, get me down that bad again. So I am putting this in no comment. Everyone always says, but Christian and Alex also had some questionable behavior. Well, that's why they're also going in the no comment tier. The only man that is getting by is gonna be Reese, okay? By the way, I just want to be very clear, I thought his name was Rise. So in my head, I still say Rise. What is he, bread? I just can't read that as Reese. Anna posted that TikTok on how to pronounce his name, and I was astounded. I was so embarrassed. I was like, I'm counting my blessings that I never made a TikTok trying to talk about this man or this book, because I would have embarrassed myself on the internet. As if I don't already do that. But like, digital footprints exist. So when I'm hot and famous, somebody could bring that back up. No. Immediately no. Okay, then we've got Twisted Lies. I read this as an ARC. I was very much surprised because it was a highly anticipated release. But thank you, Valentine PR. You are also doing the work of the people, for the people, by the people. I am going to put this in... You were good, but I was waiting for you to be great. The climax was a little unsettling. I'm going to be completely transparent. I did not want to go to bed. I debated quitting social media after that. There is a stalker plot going on. It just was very eerie. Okay, then we've got Window Shopping by Tessa Bailey. I'm not quite sure if this classifies as a BookTok book, but during the time it came out, since it was around the holidays, a lot of people were talking about it. I am putting this in, I wish that I could wake up with amnesia. It is my least favorite book of hers. What was going on? I think I might sell this book as well. So if you want to shop my library, go to my Pango books. I was just laughing the entire time. It was comedic. It truly was. Okay, then we've got Wrecked. It is about Jax and Elena. Now, she's trying to save him from this PR disaster. It's sort of a forbidden romance, I suppose. I saw Jax as Blaise Zambini. I was going through a Harry Potter phase at the time. I'm currently also back in my Harry Potter phase, but I'm obsessing over George Weasley because he is the original for me. He will always be my man, my man, my man. But when I was going through my Blaise Zambini phase, I imagined all of my fictional characters that I read about as him. Does anyone else do that? Because whoever I'm obsessing over at that period of time, I will imagine in all my books. So I rated this book 3 stars. I'm gonna put it in You Were Good, but I Was Waiting for You to Be Great. It wasn't as bad as Collided. Jax was definitely a more bearable male protagonist. I personally would probably never date him, but he was kind of hot. I'm gonna be completely honest about that. I'm gonna be honest about that. I can admit that. Okay, we're getting toward the end. We've got You Deserve Each Other. I hated this book. They despised each other a little too much. There is no way they survived after the epilogue. They most definitely got a divorce. I am putting this under I Wish That I Could Wake Up with Amnesia. It was supposed to be this lovers to enemies back to lovers trope, and it just didn't read that way. Okay, then we've got Your Dad Will Do by Katie Robert. I am putting this in... I didn't hyperfixate on it. I just read it because I was looking for a smutty novella. I just wanted some steamy moments at the time. So I suppose I should just put it in You Were Good, but I Was Waiting for You to Be Great, especially if Twisted Lies is in it. Did I hyperfixate on Twisted Lies? I definitely did. I am moving Twisted Lies up to hyperfixation tier. Okay, then we've got You've Reached Sam. I could not stop crying this entire book, but it was so mediocre. It was mid in every sense of the word. I'm putting this in no comment. Wow, maybe I should have left that space for Ugly Love. So Ugly Love was the very first Colleen Hoover book I ever read. I ate it up. I'm not sure why. Once again, I was starting to get into new adult novels, and I am gonna put this in no comment, I think. Okay, now that I've sorted everything, I want to see if there's anything I need to move. I mentioned before that I was probably going to move a couple of these around. Okay, I think I'm going to move Bad Girl Reputation down to I Wish That I Could Wake Up with Amnesia. Okay, I think I agree with where I put everything. Maybe. It's the tiers. I made it my entire personality and will proceed to do so, and I definitely hyperfixated on it for longer than usual, that are doing me in. I'm just going to trust my instincts. That was a lot of fun. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I'm equally parts nervous and excited to edit this and post it. I would love to talk about these books if you've got same or differing opinions. I love seeing what other people's thoughts are on these books. You just never agree with someone else's taste all the way. You're always gonna have differing opinions with people, but thank you for watching me to rank these and have an identity crisis while I was at it. As always, I've linked all of my socials down below. I post daily on my Bookstagram and I post almost daily on my BookTok. You can see what I'm currently reading over on Goodreads. If you want to read with me, I've got a book club over on Fable. It's called Lessons in Love, and as I mentioned, we are currently reading Happy Place by Emily Henry. I would love to see you all there. I mentioned selling a couple of these books in this video, so I will also link my Pango books down below. I love you all, and as always, happy reading.